That japa, that repeated utterance should be with meaning and feeling. So I would like, Sangeeta, at this point, you can stop sharing the slide, and I would like you to just lead us through this beautiful understanding of how that Pranava is produced from within us as part of this exploration. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you so much, Sir Guruji. Truly, I feel so happy right now that we are here and that you're guiding us, truly. Yes, there are many, many teachings that Swamiji and Ammaji and you have shared with us. One of them that I think it's worth remembering is, what is the breath? The breath is one manifestation of prana. Prana manifests in many ways. The breath is one manifestation of prana. It's not that prana is in the breath only, but that it is the breath, a manifestation of prana. Prana comes before the breath. And sound, the uttered sound, is made of breath. And because sometimes when I work with the voice also, sir, people are like, oh, the voice, okay, we'll do the breathing and then we'll do the voice. It's like there's no voice without breathing, and there's no breathing without prana. So when we talk about the ascension of the sound, there's a beautiful and really truly enlightening correlation in our parampara on the relationship between the sections of the lungs and the loci, or the positions of the sound. Now this sound already is there before we utter the Pranava Om. So the breath in the flow of the prana moving upwards, and Swamiji calls the sound of the Aum an evolutionary sound, which is such a beautiful description of the Om in the yoga step by step. So the first aspect we want to be mindful of is where the breath, as it travels past the vocal cords. The vocal cords are at the center of the physical correspondence of the Vishuddha chakra, the vocal cords. And vocal comes from Vak, so Vachaka is also the vocal cords. So we come up, and the breath, the prana in the form of breath, stimulates the gattaro at the bottom here of the larynx. And then it travels up in the back and stimulates the palate. So we call it palatal sounds. Travels up the cerebral retroflex and come forward in the nasal sounds. So that happens with the breath. In the Soham, this is already happening. We just have to become aware. It's not just breathing in and breathing out. There's a journey that the breath takes, bringing in the prana into all of these areas of our pharynx, the larynx, the vocal cavity, the nasal cavity, and the ear canals. So it's all here. When it comes to the actual, the sounds, the nadas, the akara, the a is guttural. It's the beginning of all of the alphabets that derive from the Sanskrit or the Proto-Indo-European root. And so the lower section of the lungs has a very strong relation to the akara. And they're both at the bottom of the processes of inhalation, exhalation, and the production of sound, of course. So they're both here. Then as we move up, we go up onto the Madhyam pranayama. And as we go up, we also touch the Madhyam area of the resonance of the voice, which are all the palatal sounds. The palatal sounds are not just oo, but we also have palatal vowels like and diphthongs. But in our specific case is oo. Now oo, when we travel from a to oo, there's something that later was called metaphony, or the merging of two sounds into one. So a, as we close the mouth, you can hear that in the middle between a and u is o. And that's why aum is om also. It's the sound, it's not just because of the written language, it's coming from the actual perception of the sound. Between a and u, we have o. So then we have ow, this is the palatal sound. It travels up the back of the throat and it travels up to the soft palate. It leaves the tongue, it goes up in the resonance of the soft palate, then the hard palate. The palate is the soft membrane in the back of your throat, and then as you go up with your tongue, you can touch the bony area, that's the hard palate, and that's the U. Now the U gives into or rises into makara. That's the adhyam, the highest apical section of the lungs. And it travels from the cerebral retroflex sound of So the starts with the cerebral retroflex, what Dr. Nandaji calls the nasal twang. We also have it in the is not just a nasal sound, it's just first our cerebral retroflex, and then it moves forward into the nasal sound, and from there into the pyramid of the nose, of the bony structure of the nose, and from there to the skull, leaving the sound leaves the top of the skull. So here's the journey, and it corresponds exactly with the Vibhaga Pranayama, the Mahat Yoga Pranayama, when we invoke the full Pranava Om. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta, for that detailed description. Because I wanted also this understanding to be there, that it's not just something theoretical, something out there, but it's also something that we can invoke, because the whole, what can I call it? The methodology, the mechanism behind all of this practice is you invoke, and by invoking, you evoke. That is the whole mechanism behind all of this. You invoke, and by invoking, you evoke.